Most people believe their assumption fails because it was not vivid enough or because they did not persist long enough. But I tell you, that is not where the failure occurs. The assumption is rarely lost in imagination. It is undone in the ordinary moments of the day, quietly, subtly, without effort and without awareness. You feel certain at night. You fall asleep convinced the seed has been planted, and yet by morning, by noon, by the smallest irritation or reaction, you slip back into the old man as naturally as breathing. You do not decide to abandon your assumption. You simply consent to the old feeling again, and that consent, though unspoken, is enough to void the prayer. I am not speaking here of failure, nor of a lack of faith, but of an unseen habit that cancels what you have already accepted as true. If you wonder why nothing seems to change despite doing everything right, then listen closely, for the cause is nearer than you think. It is not what you imagine, but what you continue. Let us examine how this happens. You assume that once a state has been accepted in imagination, it will remain unless you consciously reject it. But assumption does not require rejection to be undone. It only requires neglect. The seed is rarely destroyed by doubt. It is neutralized by habit. You plant the end at night, and then throughout the day, you water the opposite without realizing it. This undoing does not appear dramatic. It hides in tone, in inner commentary. In the silent way, you react to delay, contradiction, or inconvenience. A single sigh, a quiet, of course this happens, a fleeting irritation that you accept as justified. These are not harmless moments. They are agreements, and every agreement is a return to a state. You believe you are merely responding to the world, but in truth, you are renewing the old assumption. You speak inwardly as the one who is still waiting, still proving, still hoping something will change. And imagination, being impersonal, does not argue with you. It accepts the feeling you consent to now, not the one you once entertained. Understand this clearly. The work is not undone because you failed to persist in imagination, but because you persisted in reaction. You carried the old man into the daylight and allowed him to speak freely. And whatever state is most frequently returned to, that is the state that solidifies as fact. What then is this reaction that undoes the work? It is not anger, it is not fear, it is not even disappointment. Those are only symptoms. The true cause is agreement. The moment you inwardly agree with what your senses report, you have abandoned the end and returned to the means. You have stepped out of assumption and back into observation. You believe the danger lies in what you imagine at night, but the danger lies in what you explain during the day. Explanation is the silent confession that the end is not yet secured. When you mentally justify delay, when you reason with appearances, when you say inwardly, it hasn't happened yet, but that single concession is enough. You have shifted states without noticing the movement. Prayer is never canceled by forgetting it. It is canceled by contradicting it. And contradiction is rarely loud. It is casual. It sounds reasonable. It seems rational. You do not feel as though you have changed anything. And that is precisely why it works. The state is lost, not through effort, but through familiarity. Imagination accepts the position you most naturally occupy, not the one you prefer, not the one you repeat in words, but the one you quietly stand in when no one is watching. If you would guard anything, guard this, not the image you form, but the attitude you return to when the image is absent. For the state you habitually resume during the day That is the state you have chosen. And that choice, once accepted, moves forward without your permission. How then do we break this cycle? The correction is not found in doing more, it is found in doing less. You do not secure a state by effort, but by refusing to contradict it. Most people believe they must constantly affirm the end, repeating words to keep it alive. But the state does not ask for repetition. It asks for loyalty. Loyalty is revealed not when things go well, but when the image is absent, when the result has not yet appeared, when the senses offer you something to react to. At that moment, you are not required to imagine anything new. You are only required to remain still, inwardly, to withhold agreement, to let the appearance pass without commentary. This is the discipline, not controlling thoughts, but suspending reaction, not correcting the world, but correcting your consent to it. When the old feeling rises, you do not fight it. You do not analyze it. You simply do not continue it. You may feel the impulse to explain, to justify, to mentally narrate what is happening. That impulse is the doorway back to the old state. Do nothing with it. Let it fall unfinished. The state is preserved by non-participation, by the quiet refusal to rehearse what no longer belongs to you. This is not indifference. It is fidelity to the end you have already accepted. You are not waiting for the state to become real. You are preventing yourself from leaving it. And the moment reaction ceases, the work resumes on its own. For imagination never stops creating. It only follows the state you occupy. Do not look for signs. Do not wait for confirmation. The moment you seek reassurance, you are digging up the seed to see if it has roots. The end does not require proof. It requires trust. You do not manage it. You leave it alone. From this moment forward, treat your reaction as interference. Every time you feel the urge to explain, to comment, to mentally rehearse what has not yet appeared, stop yourself. You are touching what does not belong to you. Do not lift a finger to aid it. You are not asked to force the change. You are only asked not to block it, to step out of the way, to let the assumption harden into fact without your meddling. The world will rearrange itself. It always has. Your only task is to stop interrupting the process. You do not need to do anything to make it happen. You need only stop undoing it. Keep the inner silence, for the state you do not disturb creates the life you desire. Now, let us go into the silence.